In this video, we're going to do our best to figure out which major league organization has the best minor league hitting development philosophy. And we're going to do that by looking at some advanced statistics from A ball all the way up to AAA, combine all that information into individual statistics and break it out by organization. That's what you see on the left side of your screen right here. I'll be screen sharing through this entire video. This is our document. This is the beast we're going to dig through. And then on the right is kind of tracking my thoughts. I've already gone through this exercise, so this is a good way to follow along. I'm going to have this linked, this Notion document linked in the comments for you to follow along with if you want. And this is going to be fun. I'm really excited for this because I don't think we get a chance to look at this data a lot on a really high level view, the 20,000, 30,000 foot overview. And there's some acknowledgments to go with, right? It's so high level that I think I might miss some nuance of how individual organizations maybe develop certain kinds of hitters. And I think that's okay, right? Despite that, I think what we can do, and the purpose of this video is to try to find the fingerprint of each organization. And we're going to dig into it by doing some good, what we think is good, what I think is good. Look at some ones that I find more interesting and look at some ones that I also think might just not be great. And that'll be fun. That'll be interesting. Some of the differences we're going to look at in the individual statistics are marginal. I get it, right? There's no other way to do this from this high of a level unless you're accepting that a 4 percentage point difference has some signal in it more so than noise. And I also get that swing decisions are really important, and the ones that I'm kind of using here aren't particularly perfect. I know organizations value and grade swing decisions differently, but I think something like a zone swing and a chase gets us maybe 60 to 70% of the way there. And from there, we could kind of figure out what teams are good and what teams are bad. So let's dig into it. My 3 pillars here of this exercise, not my 3 pillars of what I think make a really effective department on the hitting side of things in an organization. Biomechanics has obviously got to be in there to some extent, which maybe that relates to contact quality. But when I dig through an organization, I'm going to look at the swing decisions, which are things like OBP, zone swing, swing miss right here on the left side, chase. The delta is going to be the difference between zone swing and chase. Also look a little at contact for contact quality. We have exit velocity, 90th exit velocity, 90th percentile exit velocity. xWOBA, pitches per plate appearance, runs per game. We'll look at things like xSlug, and then we also have some pitch by pitch stuff, which I'm purely going to look at sliders and fastballs on. Let's get going. Let's start with the Mariners. Really odd organization in a good way, because when we did the pitching side of this video, which I'll link to above, they stood out in throwing the least amount of four seams, most sinkers, lowest release, ton of sliders. They were unique. I don't necessarily know if that was good, but they were unique. And we find a very similar situation on the hitting side here. Again, I'm going to follow along, walk through each of these things I have. Number 1 OBP, lowest chase, second lowest swing. This all relates again back to swing decisions right there. OBP, number 1 in this combination again, A ball all the way up to AAA, combine it into one statistic. 358, really strong for Seattle. That's great. Lowest chase, we can sort that off and see that. Lowest chase all the way down here. We'll ascend it. Green. All right, that's another thing I didn't mention actually quickly. These color coding is essentially just scaled within that individual statistic. So dark green is good based on the statistics, White is not particularly good. So if you're looking for a good organization, you're looking for more green, less white. Very simple. Lowest chase alongside the highest OBP and also the second lowest swing rate. I didn't really highlight swing rate because I wasn't sure if more aggressive or less aggressive is good. I'm assuming less aggressive is good, but we will leave that unhighlighted. Good. This is good. I put it right here next to the Mariners, but I think they have really elite plate skills from purely a not swinging standpoint. Don't swing at everything, right? We want you to be more passive at the plate because we know that good swing decisions are impacting every individual pitch, perhaps, rather than just ball and play by purely looking at the exit velocity side of things. I think that's solid. I think this jumps out from a production standpoint for them. They're the most unique in that respect, I think. They don't chase at all, right? This delta we're looking at, which I think is a pretty good assessment of some of the better organizations here that we're going to dig through, and also maybe an odd organization or two, which I'll tease you on. You'll have to get to later in the video. This is the difference between zone swing and chase. I don't know if this is the one statistic that I like the most to just determine what teams are good at developing hitters. I think it misses on a couple teams on this left side right here as I highlight the top half of the league in terms of swinging in the zone, minus how much you chase. Not sure, not entirely sure, but it's one way to look at things, one way we could peek at things. Mariners are just solid at the swing decisions, I think. And then when you jump over to EVs, they're kind of more average, right? Exit velocity's fine, right? More average to better on EVs. Exit velocity's around average, 90th's around average, 90th percentile, it's around average, but that's okay because the net results they get are really good, right? The xWOBA for them is the highest. They have really strong runs per game. Their xSlug is really strong. So that they have a really nice combination of, I think, exit velocity alongside really passive swing decisions, which are going to net out and maybe more value. And I don't know if that's philosophically good in the minor leagues to be that passive. Maybe it's preventing guys from developing as hitters overall, but the results that they're getting are kind of undeniable in this respect, so I put them in the good tier. When we jump into individual pitch level things, we we could see sliders here, right? What did I have for them? I had that they were top 3 X slug and the plate skills carry over. That makes a lot of sense, right? Let me highlight the Mariners on the left side here so it's easy to see when I resort. Mariners in red, X slug against sliders specifically. They are 3rd in baseball, strong, really good. But the passive nature of their approach carries over to this. They're not swinging a lot at sliders overall. And I also don't believe they're swinging and missing a ton. They are swinging and missing a bit at them. Okay, that's okay. Maybe they're passive, but a little swing and miss on them. Good contact quality. I think the net here is solid overall. And that plate approach, that passivity on here, I think carries over to fastballs as well. If I were to highlight them, which they will be right there, we'll highlight them, boom. And swing again for this is low. So individual pitch type level, low. But the contact quality that they are getting at, again, is pretty good on both those pitch types. Mariners, good. I'm going to go with elite plate skills. I think they're pretty patient. Yankees, a little different. A little different in the respect that they kill sliders. I'm going to have them as slider killers, but we will first dig through some of the other things that jump out with them and contrast them with the Mariners organization. And I will highlight them red right here. They jump out on a couple things, particularly on the exit velocity side of things. Strong OBP. I like it. Good, right? Number 2, zone swing. We'll look at that. Solid, right? Number 2, zone swing is really good. That's awesome. On this delta, the difference between zone swing and chase, I like. They're not swinging a lot outside of the zone. They are swinging in the zone. That's below average chase. We see that netted out. Number 2 in baseball in that differential stat. Their contact looks fine. And then you see some really strong EVs, right? They're more of an EV organization. Highest exit velocity, average exit velocity by 6.6. Doesn't seem like a lot, but I do think it in these margins, it does matter a bit. 90th percentile, really strong. xWOBA, really, really strong. Again, 2nd in baseball to the Mariners. And then X-Slug, I believe they're number 1. So when they're getting to their batted balls, I think they're doing more damage than the Mariners and slightly more aggressive in doing so, which I think is totally fine. And when you go pitch level with them, I want to look specifically at sliders here because they jumped out in that respect. Seattle, unhighlight Seattle, and we will highlight the Yankees here for when I resort. Where do they go? Where do they go? Where do they go? They are not on here. No, you know why? Because I don't think... Oops, sorry. There we go. They're up at the top. That's why. And we will go boom, boom, boom. Red. Number 1 X-Slug versus slider specifically. A little more aggressive of an organization, right? They're more average, where we saw the Mariners were down here around below average in that respect. And they're combining with a bit of swing and miss, but I just like they're getting to good results in a slightly different way than the Mariners are. Mariners are really passive, and I think they're driving their success through that. Yankees, I think, are a little more aggressive, but they've got a lot of flack. Like I hopped on Foul Territory, a really cool channel that Scott Braun and AJ Brzezinski and Eric Kratz, Todd Frazier, a lot of other guys are on all the time. I love it. I think it's awesome for the game for them to do that. And they had a guy on, individual in the minor league organization, who didn't say the Yankees were doing a good job of individualizing their approach. I just disagree. I think they do a good job of creating the kind of hitter that could be successful at the major league level. And on the minor league side, I think that might be all you can do, especially at the major league level for them where they have a lot of financial influence. They probably have maybe a slight minor disconnect between what's happening in the minors and what's happening in the majors. And that's a pressure of performance thing. But what they're doing in the minor leagues, I think, is good. And I think they've proven that. And they've proven that for multiple years through statistics like this. Through X-Slug, through these other things. 2 years in a row, I believe they've been number 1 in X-Slug and right on the top 3 in xWOBA. It's hard for me to say they do a bad job. They just do it in a different way. They do it more through contact quality, whereas I see the Mariners doing it more through elite plate skills. The Cubs are not going to be as dynamically up on any of these metrics, but I think they land in a tier, similar tier to like the Orioles. I'd even say maybe to some extent the Astros, where they do a lot of things really good, right? We're going to look through the Cubs now. I have them top 3 zone swing. I think that's good. Right? Swinging zone a lot. I like it. Top 3. Overall, to above average plate skills, we see that, right? We're looking at the green here. All of it's kind of a little bit darker. Nothing's super dark. Nothing's white, which is strong. Swing and miss. I think that's a little bit low, which is good. Yep, a little below average. This delta we're looking at, zone swing minus chase. Top 10, really strong. Their contact looks good. You go to the exit velocity side of things, and I think it's really encouraging. Top 3 in the EV. So maybe a little more leaning on the EV side of things, which is fine, but they're doing it with good plate skills and plate approach. Number 1 in 90th EV. xWOBA, more average, so slightly underperforming results there. I'm not entirely sure why. Runs per game looks solid, and X-Slug for them I think is also pretty high. Yeah, kind of more average, so maybe a slight underperformance of some of the underlying statistics for them. The interesting thing with them, however, though, is that when you look at their major league team, really bad versus four-seam fastballs each of the last 2 seasons. We saw them kind of get pounded late in the year on this respect. This is just a simple savant sort. And I just wanted to show you this quick. if we could sort this out. Bottom 3, X slug versus four seam. Bottom 3, X wOBA versus four seam. Not great, but it's encouraging then when you see some maybe synergy here between what the major league team isn't doing well and perhaps what they're trying to teach in the minor leagues, is that when you go specifically and look at fastballs, and we'll unhighlight the Mariners, and we will highlight the Cubs if I can find them right there. They do a pretty good job hitting four seam, which I think is good. I think it's really encouraging. Or good job. They don't do a great job, right? They're top 10-ish here. You know, the slug's fine. I don't think they chase a ton at them. Yep, that's good. Kind of passive in nature. Are actually pretty aggressive against them, which I think is also really good. Excuse me, not passive. Aggressive against four seam fastballs is probably strong from my theory, my brain here. So I like that, right? Number 1 in X slug. Did I say have the number 1 X slug versus four seam? No, I don't have the number 1 X slug. MiLB top number 1 X slug. Well, that's an error. What did I write down there? Come on. Let me see. Go back here. They were not number 1 in X slug. They were like middle of the pack, so that's wrong. Sorry. MiLB top 7 slug, and we'll just take that off. Four seam. But anyways, the takeaway I wanted here on the Cubs was that they're doing things in the minor leagues that are perhaps building to improve the major league team and what the major league team has not done well against. Whether that's intentional or more just philosophical, and this is what they landed on, successful. But I do think they have that nature, that nice zone of being good against fastballs and swinging aggressively against fastballs, and maybe not being as aggressive against things like sliders. And the other team, as I go to others of note here that I think are good, I think the Orioles do a really good job at that. They have a really high four-seam swing, so let's highlight the Orioles alongside the Cubs here. Some similarities, I think, between these organizations and what they're doing. Both pretty aggressive on fastballs, really good results. Cubs overperforming maybe slightly more than the Orioles. Orioles chasing a little more. Okay, cool. But then when we go to slider too, this is maybe a slight difference between these two orgs. Let me unhighlight the Yankees. And the difference we're going to see here is that, let me see, Baltimore. The difference we're going to see here is both teams are aggressive versus four-seam fastballs, which I like. The difference here, though, that jumps out to me is that Baltimore's a little more passive versus sliders, which you're not going to create as much damage against, where the Cubs are slightly more aggressive. This is a really marginal difference. It's about 1 percentage point. But I think it matters because I think the Cubs maybe are slightly more aggressive. I have them in the good, but I do think the Orioles are in kind of this Goldilocks zone where they're aggressive, more so than any other team. They're more aggressive versus fastballs above average, and more passive versus sliders than any other organization that I've seen down here. None of these other organizations down here are particularly as aggressive, any of these organizations here, are as aggressive against four-seam fastballs than Baltimore is. So I like that differential that they're doing. I call it the Goldilocks zone. I also call it the Goldilocks zone for them on the pitching side of things and being very individualized, which I think is good. So that's one note on the Orioles. Back to fastballs quickly, I'm going to point out another org that does well is the Tigers. Really good on contact quality side of things, specifically, against four-seam fastballs. And I will sort this quick because I know they're at the top or near the top. Cool, right there. Good, that's good. I like that. Crushing four-seam. They're another team that kind of pops, isn't really incredible at anything, but does have some performance that I think is encouraging versus fastball specifically, which I like. They're also not swinging and missing almost at all at them, which I think is also really encouraging. They're like bottom 3. So they're doing nice damage against four-seam and not swinging and missing much. Jump out to me. Minnesota is kind of like maybe more of a modern org here. I like them also in a couple respects, and I'll point them out quickly, is that they do a really good job in a little more varying ways. They do a good job. Okay, like not as much zone swing. This delta we're looking at isn't as high, right? The swing decisions here maybe could slightly improve. You know, lowest chase, though, is really encouraging, which I like. So maybe more in that passive nature, and maybe they need to be swinging zone slightly more, but I really like that chase is that low, right, alongside the Mariners. Similar to the Mariners in a couple respects, right? Mariners are just getting better results, more runs per game, etc. But the thing that's interesting with the Twins is that they pull the ball a ton, right? And they combine that pull with some really nice exit velocities and a decently passive approach to the plate. The only thing I'd say here is maybe they're not in the top tier because I think that zone swing is interesting to me. I'm not sure if they're maybe being slightly too passive or swinging too much, potentially at sliders and stuff. But I do like, again, big pull, good EVs, second lowest swing rate overall. More in that passive nature, more in that Mariner vein of being passive. I just found it interesting to them that they're pulling the ball that much because I think that, you know, not great. A lot of elite hitters actually spray the ball. I was looking at like spray distribution of guys like Acuna and Tatis. They swing so hard. I don't think it's necessary for them to pull the ball. There's an old adage that we'll get into in a bit that you hit the ball 105 plus. I don't really care if you're pulling it or hitting it the other way. It's going to be an extra base hit probably most of the time. So maybe they're kind of isolating off some guys who aren't able to be in that elite tier of performance and have some results that are encouraging. So I like what the Twins are doing. Interesting now is an odder space, because this is kind of where I'm more indifferent on whether I think the organization is great or not or whatever. But the Marlins are really, really aggressive, and I do not know what to make of it overall. If I could find them on here, I'd be able to show you. Marlins are down here. Not a good OBP. I don't know if this is great. I don't think they're good. I just think they're interesting because they're getting to not great results in an odd way that maybe has some merits at the end of the day. Maybe it finds particular kinds of players that work at the major league level. Really aggressive zone swing. Really low OBP, but super aggressive zone swing here, right? Crazy. That's up there. Swing miss really low, so they're swinging in zone a good amount. They're not swinging and missing. And they're also chasing a ton, right? That's not good. Almost 30% chase is much higher than some of these other orgs. Like, that difference is big. That's almost 5 percentage points difference on chase. 5 and 100 pitches. I think that matters, especially when you're not doing a lot of damage on those pitches outside of the zone. Contact's good for them. EVs are mediocre to average to not great, and their X slug isn't good. But they are so aggressive. They swing at everything. Versus fastballs in particular, I found it really interesting. They just hack. I don't know if it's good. I can't imagine that it's great, but perhaps it finds hitters that are good. Maybe it's one of the reasons why they liked Luis Ariz. He's a relatively aggressive hitter and has a lot of hits. But this is something philosophically in the minor leagues that they just seem to jump on. Swinging the most at forcing fastballs, I think, is good, right? Not swinging and missing a lot of forcing fastballs, I also think is good. And then you go, chasing that much on forcing fastballs, I don't think is great. But yet, their performance results against them are pretty solid. So they swing at everything. I can't imagine it's a good philosophy to have, but they're getting to like average-ish results in a weird way that maybe it does create some kind of major league talent through having this approach. I'm not entirely sure it's the best way to approach things. So I'm hesitant to say they're good. I can leave them more in the interesting category. The Rays are interesting because they're kind of in more that, I think, Cub, Baltimore Oriole tier, where they do a couple things really well, but they have some warts, and then they have an overperformance thing that I think jumps out, which I'll talk about right here. The Rays, OBP is fine. Like, everything is average around here, right? I have it written right here. High swing miss, that was the problem. Yeah, not everything's around average. They swing and miss a lot. Okay, that's not great. Chase, no, also not great. Or kind of more average, right? So they're swinging a lot. They kind of end up in not so great of an area on a contact standpoint. I'm not exactly sure if that's swing decision side of thing. Not a great zone contact number. Their delta here, that zone swing minus chase is average. You know, I think the swing decisions here aren't ideal. The exit velocities, however, are not bad. And I think that's good. I think that's encouraging. They're doing something right here. Like, they're obviously a modern organization in a couple respects. They're just perhaps swinging and missing a bit too much. Net results here, they're like kind of average to fine. The thing that's interesting to me, though, is that when you jump to fastballs for them specifically, you see something that I remember reading a Ben Clemens piece on Fangraphs about a bit ago, which is that nugget that I mentioned a bit ago that talked about how if you're hitting ball 105, I don't care where you're spraying it. But if you're in that 95 to 105 window, I care that you're pulling the ball because that matters a lot, right? So let's go right here, right? Fly ball, speed, direction. This window right here. See, you're above 1,000 on WOBA no matter if you're hitting a 105 plus. This window, however, the difference here, especially in that 95 to 100, just over hard hit, so still considered a hard hit ball, but not like scorched, really matters if you're pulling the ball, if you look at those statistics. And this is where a guy like Isaac Paredes really shines. Spray angle, 95 to 105 on fly balls. He pulls 65% of them, which is bananas to me, right? He is pulling all those balls in that window. The opposite field, like 5% of the time. Look at the differential there, right? That's huge. And that is one of the ways that you can overperform and sustain overperformances. Expected statistic is not really going to consider spray angle. I know teams internally have probably distributions, or models and metrics that are counting these things and making meaning of them. But it's funny to me that you look at a guy like Isaac Paredes, who's doing that exact thing, who's overperforming from a slug standpoint or WOBA standpoint, his ex-WOBA. And then you look at Tampa Bay in the minor leagues versus four-seam fastball specifically, and you see the exact same problem. Or not problem, you see the exact same feature, so to speak. They're overperforming their slug on fastballs in the minor leagues by 40 points. So I wonder whether they have a philosophy in the minor leagues to pull fastballs, to get out in front of fastballs and create pull there. There's a similar situation going on here with sliders. It's just not as emphasized. No other team here has around like a 25-point gap between their X-slug and slug. You look at them, you're ripping through. But Rays are crushing four-seam fastballs, and they're crushing them I think in a really unique way, right? It's like 21 points of slug difference between them and the number 2 team versus 4-seamers. Yet that X slug is there. And again, that X slug is not considering spray angle. So I wonder if Isaac Paredes and the adjustments they made with him to pull the ball are showing what they're doing in the minor leagues, showing their hand in the minor leagues to some extent. And we can now kind of confirm that through some of the data I'm looking at, where they don't really jump out in a lot of respects, and perhaps they have some swing and miss problems, but they seem to really be encouraging guys to pull the ball. And as a result of that, maybe their overperformance is something they could sustain based on that philosophy, based on the public statistics not really incorporating spray angle too well. So that's interesting to me. Those are the interesting teams. I think Tampa is the philosophy I would definitely pick over the Marlins, because I just don't necessarily think being that aggressive is a super great idea. Now we can get to the bad. And I never like looking at the bad because I've contacts in organizations and I don't want to rip them, right? But I'm trying to go as objective as possible here. And the Royals aren't doing a great job, unfortunately. They aren't doing a great job, I think, specifically from the contact quality standpoint and the net result standpoint. Swing decisions, however, not terrible, right? I don't think they're doing a bad job here. Like, you look at this delta we were looking at, I pulled this and was like, are these the best teams in baseball from a minor league development standpoint? I think you can make a case that it hits on like 13 of the 16. There's a couple that jump out here. You'll notice both these on the bad here, right? Atlanta and KC, I'm going to talk about right here, I think are bad. Atlanta maybe not terrible, but let's get to the Royals first. OBP is low. Discipline stats are okay. Poor net results, right? That's what I have written over here. And we see that, right? Again, there's some green here. Like, I don't think they're doing a terrible job making contact, make a decent amount of contact. They don't really chase a ton. It's like, cool, yeah. They have a little aggressive on the chase. This delta is good because they're swinging in zone. I think a reasonable amount of the time they're not chasing. Like, okay, great. And then you look, and purely white across the board here on our xWOBA and EVs. Just not good. Just not good at all. They're lowest in average X velocity, lowest in 90th X velocity, second lowest in xWOBA, second lowest in X slug. They just don't do a lot of things well on the contact quality side of things, and I think that really becomes apparent when you look at then production. X slug at 360, that's looking at more pure contact quality as opposed to incorporating things like on-base skills, like an xWOBA would, and getting on base and more passivity in your swing decisions. Runs per game, not great. Just not doing the best job, unfortunately. And the interesting thing is when you could contrast it back to another organization here. If you look, let me see, pull rate. Here we go. This is what I wanted to point out. So we talked about the Twins earlier being kind of a modern org, pulling the ball a ton. You'll actually find some similarities between these two orgs. Looking at Twins, we're looking at right here, Twins and Royals. Royals lower OBP. Swing, Royals are a bit more aggressive in zone as well. Swing and miss comparable, chase comparable. If you were to look at these things specifically here without even maybe looking at the OBP, you'd be like, okay, like similar from a swing decision teaching standpoint. Twins are a little more passive, not chasing as much. I like that. And then you go to the EVs, and they're not hitting the ball hard at all, right? There's a big differential here. And then you point out the fact that they're pulling the ball and not hitting the ball hard. That is, I think, perhaps the most concerning thing to me. Most of your hard X velocities are coming to your pull side because most of your hardest X velocities are coming out in front of the plate. And they're pulling the ball and not hitting the ball hard is perplexing, especially when you think of the idea that I've heard, not sure if it's entirely true, but bat speed gains happen really quickly. It's like that learning curve. You ever seen that learning curve where initially when you start something, you get a lot of gains and then it kind of plateaus, and those marginal gains down the road are really hard, create more time. But the time interval between, say, gaining a bit of bat speed is low. So if you implement org-wide bat speed training, you should be able to get those EVs up really quickly. So I'm not entirely sure if the Royals haven't done that or haven't done that effectively, or pulling the ball, but it's odd to me that they're pulling the ball and not able to get these EV results. Like, you look at the Yankees pull the ball as much as the Royals, and the differential here is massive. 2.5 90th EV, almost 4 miles per hour average X velocity, and they have similar like batted ball results. And then you look at the result, it's like batted ball outcome, like fly ball, ground ball right here, FBGB, QR columns. And slug is just massively, like 50, 60 points of slug. Organizationally, this is so macro. I was worried initially that we were looking too macro to the point where we wouldn't be able to find anything that was interesting up top. But that's like glaring to me that the Royals are not doing something on the contact quality side of things. And again, I know that swing decisions are a little more important. It's just so glaringly obvious to me that they're doing something wrong, perhaps, on the X velocity side of things, training-wise, that you got to point out that they're not doing the best job there. And I think that's a slight concern, so I have them in the bad tier. Now, let's finish this quickly with the worst, not the worst, excuse me, that was preempted. I'm stuck on the Royals. The most confusing organization to me in looking through all of this is the Braves, because I actually think the Braves have reasonable swing decisions. And when you look at this delta we're looking at between zone swing and chase, how much you're swinging in the zone versus how much you're chasing. Braves are killing it, right? Awesome. Top 10-ish zone swing. And, chase really strong, right? Really good. They're in this tier. The Brewers, Twins, Mariners. This Delta, they're actually number 1, I believe. I sorted that. Yep. Right next. We said this was good for the Yankees and the Mariners, Cubs, Tigers, Twins. And with the Braves, it's right there. And then you jump to the contact, and I have no idea what's going on here. I haven't really thought about purely making contact. I thought that it was just so correlated with zone swing that it wouldn't really matter that much. Or just swinging generally. Like if you swing more, you have to be making more contact to have somewhat reasonable production. But my God, I don't know what's going on here on the contact side with the Braves. They just don't make contact in the minor leagues. Like that's kind of striking to me. Like that's 3.5 percentage points below the average. The Cardinals make a ton of contact. I didn't talk about them, but they're in the interesting tier where they just kind of sell out. I think they do a reasonable job making contact. They don't really hit the ball hard though. The Braves don't make any contact. And they hit the ball reasonably hard. They actually have nice pitch per plate appearance, which I think enforces the idea that they actually maybe have good swing decisions. They don't chase a lot at all, right? But their results are so bad that I had to put them in this bad tier because I'm so confused with them as an organization in this respect, where they just aren't making any contact. See, like as I say, their zone swing minus chase second highest, really good. Second highest pitches per plate appearance. Lowest contact, lowest zone contact, second highest swing and miss, which I didn't even highlight, but it's not great, right? So I do not know what's going on here with this organization's EVs around average, X slug, lowest runs per game. They miss at a ton of fastballs. Not good, right? We don't want that. It's fastballs. We were talking earlier about how teams that are really good are the ones that are probably covering fastballs more than others. I struggle here with them in particular. I don't know what's going on. Let me see. I didn't even show you what I was meant to show you here. Hold on. ATL. Fastballs. They swing and miss a ton. Not great. Boom. Swing and miss. I don't get it. Really low X slug against them too. That's another one. We're looking at like kind of small individual statistics that maybe have some signal in them. This might be one. Is how do you perform X slug wise against four seam? These are a couple organizations I have in this bottom of note here. Specifically the Angels and the White Sox. I don't know what to make of the Braves. If someone follows this organization maybe closer, I'm very curious in your comments. I just don't know what's going on the contact side of things. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little aggressive putting them in the bad. Maybe it should be more interesting. But it's the results are just not that good to the point where I had to put them in the bad. Because Marlins were getting like not great results, but they were doing it in a very distinct way, where in a way that was like over aggressive, where they clearly have some org philosophy of just swing at everything. But I don't know. The Braves are struggling to make contact, and it's very odd. And I won't really rip at other organizations, but I mean, it's not particularly surprising on some of the other ones that are bad. That just, I think we've talked about it on other videos, is the not having good player development. I'll just talk through their notes here as opposed to ripping through the whole sheet. Chicago White Sox are bottom 5 in results across the board in contact quality. They chase sliders a ton. Not great. Angels crushed by sliders. Tons of slider chase. You're noticing a theme here that teams that can't salvage average approaches against sliders are not great. The Angels also pull a ton and hit a ton of ground balls. It was a very perplexing combination to me. Oakland, maybe not as terrible as I think the White Sox and the Angels. Low zone swing, which I don't love. They chase a lot too, so then when you look at this delta we were looking at, they're not great. They're the lowest, right? Not enough EV is one of the things that I think is reasonable to think about as to make up for it. We saw it with the Mariners, right? Mariners don't have crazy EVs, but they have such strong swing decisions that it boosts, I think, a lot of their production, especially on the extra side of things, and this delta we're looking at, this combination. But if we think this delta is important, to some extent we have to look at the team that's the worst at it. Similar situation with Boston, but yeah, the A's just not great in that respect. So that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I know there's a lot of info here. I tried to go a little quick to keep this a bit condensed, but if you have any more thoughts, comments, anything you want to talk through another team, I'm in the comments. Subscribe. Check out the other videos I have. Hopefully this gives you an idea and some overview of maybe what some teams on the minor league side are doing that is good on the hitting side. What makes a good hitting organization developmentally? What things maybe are more changeable? And again, our acknowledgments, marginal differences, I get it. So high level, we maybe missed some nuance, but we're looking at fingerprints of orgs, and hopefully we did that with a couple that are pretty popular. Thanks for watching. As always, take care.